Lieutenant Henry Webber was desperate to do his bit for king and country. When the war broke out, he wrote to the War Office asking if he could join up, and he was told, no, you're too old, don't be silly. His son was already in the army. His son was a captain, senior officer. As the war went on, more and more men were needed, so eventually the War Office said, okay, you can join up. And he was trained, he was made a lieutenant, and he said he was actually looking forward to meeting his son so he could salute him and wink at him. He never had that chance. He wasn't put in a fighting unit, he was put in the Transport Corps, and his job was to carry the supplies up to the front line. And it's as he was driving a wagon full of supplies up to the front line during the Battle of the Somme that a shell came out of a perfectly blue sky, smashed into the road in front of him, and he was killed. That makes Lieutenant Henry Webber the oldest man to be killed during the First World War. During the First World War, there were 5 million soldiers fighting for Britain. 5 million. There were only 320 Victoria Crosses awarded. It is an extremely rare thing to win a VC. And if you did win it, you had to be the bravest of the brave. And many soldiers, of course, were killed in action, and they never knew that they had been awarded the VC. What happened if you won the VC was that the medal would be sent to your family, and along with the medal was sent what's called a citation, which is the story of why you earned the medal. Private John Miller didn't know he had won the Victoria Cross because he was killed. So the citation was sent to his family, and this is the citation. This is what it says. Private Miller has been awarded the Victoria Cross for most conspicuous bravery. His company had captured a trench. He was then forced to cross the open ground and get help and reinforcements. His commanding officer told him that the health and safety of his friends depended on his successful mission. Private Miller left the trench, and as he did so, he was shot immediately in the back, the bullet coming out through his abdomen. In spite of this, and with heroic courage and self-sacrifice, he put his hand over the gaping wound, delivered the message to the officer asking for help. And once he knew that help was coming, he then staggered back to his original officer to say that help was on its way. As soon as he had delivered the message, he dropped dead at the feet of his commanding officer. He gave his life with supreme devotion to duty. Private Robert Lee and his dad, Sergeant George Lee, both killed on the same day, the 5th of September, in the same battle, the Battle of the Somme, in the same unit, Royal Field Artillery. Can you imagine how Mrs. Lee felt when she got that letter from the War Office telling her that her husband and her only son had been killed on the same day in the same battle? This is the only place in the Western Front where a father and son lie side by side. And perhaps Mrs. Lee would have got some consolation from that at least she would know her two boys will lie together for all eternity. So that's why this is a very special place. You have the oldest man, Lieutenant Henry Webber. You have one of the very few Victoria Cross winners, Private Miller. And you've got the Lee boys, father and son.